Hello team, today's challenge is deepest brackets, where we're given a string with a bunch of nested brackets, kind of a funny way of doing an array, and we need to get the deepest level string within that. The challenge here is that we don't just use one kind of brackets, we don't use parentheses. We also have square brackets and curly brackets, and we need to track against that, which means that if we open a parentheses, the next one, in order to close that out, had better be the closing parentheses and not the closing square bracket, right? Otherwise, that's bad news. So we're going to have to track against that. But I think we can get it done. So over here, into the code, I've created a map. Okay, and you'll notice that there's something commented out here, but the key is the opening brackets, the value is the closing brackets, and that way we have something to track against. And this is going to be our source of truth. That's very important today, because if we hard code any of these values down in here, we're probably doing it wrong. Okay, it's really that simple. This is going to be our source of truth, and we are going to use this pretty much for everything. Okay, down in the function, we need a bunch of variables. Okay, the first is going to be max depth. Okay, that's going to be equal to 0. It starts at 0 because we haven't drilled down yet, right? We're starting at the surface, which means that it should be 0. The next one is going to be max depth index, and this is going to allow us to do some work later on. This is going to be the position in the string where that max depth starts, or the max depth that we care about. I'll talk about that in a second. And then the third one is going to be the current depth. So again, 0 is starting at the surface, drilling our way down. We're going to do that. The last one is going to be something that we call the bracket stack, okay? And this is going to be where we add our opening brackets as we go through, which allows us to track how we should reverse that out, okay? If we add a parentheses and then a curly bracket and then a square bracket, well, we better make sure that the closing brackets are the closing square, the closing curly, and then the closing parentheses in that order, right? Whatever we add to that, it should go in reverse, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Now, if we do this right, we're going to build up and then tear down this browser stack, which means that if you were to console log right before the return, if we do this right, it should still be empty at the end. So a little tip there, if you find that your code isn't quite working, that bracket stack should be empty when we get to the end, okay? This is where we set up our loop, okay? And a lot of these will have multiple loops. I found a way to do this with just one, which is what I'm showing you today. So let's do that. I equals 0. I is less than string.length, just like this. And I plus, okay? Excellent. Right here, we're going to be passing around the character, okay? So I'm going to grab the character from string I, like this, okay? Or if you wanted to, I was about to type at I. Both those work. But I don't want to be passing around this bit all over the place. Instead, I'm just going to pass around character. Brilliant, okay? The next bit is an if. And the if is like this. We have the opening brackets. Oh, did it wrong. Come on, do it right. I'm going to, what is it doing? My cursors are jumping around. There we go. I'm going to cut that away and go dot includes character, okay? So if we get an opening character, we are going to do something. Else if we get a closing character dot includes, then we do something else, okay? And this is going to be the bulk of the work. We're going to loop through our characters, and if we find one of these, we're going to increase our depth and pop onto or push onto the bracket stack, the bracket stack. And then if we get a closing one, we're going to remove that from the browser stack and subtract one from, I said browser stack again, bracket stack, right? We're going to remove one from bracket stack and subtract one from current depth, okay? Those will appear in there. The problem that I want to solve right now is I said this map should be our source of truth. And it isn't, right? If I add these square bracket or these angle brackets, well, now I would have to go in and add it here and go to the end of this and add it here, and it just gets, it's extra work, right? We don't want to do that. So using the map as our source of truth, that means that outside of the loop, outside because I don't want to create it all the time, okay? I can set the keys. So right here we get the keys, setting it to object, capital O object, dot keys. On what? Well, it's going to be our map, right? So that's going to return an array of just the keys, which we can use right here, okay? We go and get that. That is going to be keys includes whatever that character is. Excellent. That's step one. Step two uses the information from bracket stack. So what it ends up doing is we get rid of all of this, just like that, and we are going to check if the last item on bracket stack equals our character. If it does, then we know we have the right closing bracket. This is how we get those matching brackets, okay? So our character is here. We need to make sure that this is here, but this bracket stack is going to be the opening ones, okay? So we need to reach in there and do map bracket stack with a capital S stack, just like this. And inside of here, we are going to get the last one. So dot at -1, okay? This will make sense in a few seconds once we've added some code between these conditionals, okay? But essentially we are going to put, let's say the opening parentheses, okay? Well, if we get to a closing parentheses for the character, then we go here, we get the last one, which is currently the opening, right? And we go map opening parentheses, that should be closing parentheses. So closing parentheses equals closing parentheses. That's a whole lot of words to say yes, absolutely. And we drop into this part of the conditional, okay? Again, hopefully that makes sense. It will become more clear as we go, okay? So right here, we need to add a couple things. The first one is current depth, okay? Because we're dropping into a new bracket, we want to add one, okay? And right here, we want to subtract one, okay? Up here inside of just below that +1, okay, we want to take our bracket stack and push what? Well, it's the current character, right? That's the opening bracket. If we are in the subtracting, then it is pop, and we get rid of that. Okay, so this is kind of how it works, where we increase our depth. If we find a bracket, we increase our depth and we push that character onto our stack, which I need to delete that because that doesn't belong. But we push it onto our stack. Brilliant. When we find the matching closing bracket, then we subtract one from the depth and pop it off the stack. We get rid of it. Okay, we don't care about that anymore. And that way, again, we're growing that stack out and then collapsing it down to 0. Okay. The other part of this is a conditional inside of the keys conditional. Okay. So if current depth is greater than max depth, then do stuff. Okay. The first step is max depth. It needs to be equal to current depth. We've reached a new depth and we want to capture that, okay? The second thing that we want to do is max depth index, like this, and we set that equal to I + 1 because we don't care about where we are, we only care about the character after it, okay? We don't want the bracket, we want the character after it. And so this max depth index lets us do that, okay? So again, this is where we are, right? We have this loop that goes through each individual character. If we find an opening bracket, we do some stuff. If we find a closing bracket, we back it out, okay? And that's very important to what comes next. So with that, we can get out of the loop and do our next thing, Okay. Our next thing is a regular expression. So regular expression equals new reg exp like this, spelling it right and doing stuff. Okay. What are we doing? Well, the first thing that we're doing is a positive look behind. Okay. We don't care about what these characters are, and we don't want them to be captured at all, but we definitely want them to be there. And we don't even care what the characters are in totality. We only care about the number of letters, okay, the number of characters. This becomes our starting place for the search, if you can imagine it that way. So right here, I have that opening thing, right? This signals a look behind, and this signals that it is a positive look behind, okay? So if we start at any sort of characters, okay? Start of the string, any number of characters, but not any number, right? I said that loosely. What we want is a very specific number of characters. So we use brackets like this. And then inside of here, we pick a number like 5 or 10 or 100, right? We can absolutely do that. In this case, we already have that as max depth index, right? That's what we were tracking. This is our starting place. So we find the starting place, and then behind that, we are going to do something else. What is that something else? Well, we're going to find any character, any number of characters that is not a bracket, okay? So any number that is not, making sure that I got this right, it is going to be the closing brackets. So we have this and this and this, right? And we can get away with that. Not quite though, because these characters, there's two things going on here. One, some of these characters, well, pretty much all these characters are protected by regular expressions. So we should escape them. But because it's a string, we have to escape them twice, which means a whole lot of this, okay? The second thing is our source of truth, right? We've added this information, but we want this source of truth up here, right? So we should probably do something right out in front of it where we go end brackets like this. And we're going to set that equal to object.values, getting them from the map, not maps. And then, of course, in here, we map, right? And the reason that we map is because we want this double backslash, okay? So we get the element, sending it in, and right here we have backslash plus element, right? So we're escaping that backslash, and then all the way down here, oh wait, sorry, joining it up before I miss, otherwise it'll break, right? And then taking end brackets, getting rid of all of this hot mess and adding it in, okay? What we've done is we've created a regular expression based on our values, right? Based on the values, which means that we're going to find whatever our starting position is, right? It's as many characters as there is max depth. That's where we're starting. And then we're getting any characters that do not match our closing characters. And if we've done this right, then all of this should bring us to the end where we go match, don't forget the dot, match, regular expression, and it works. Jumping through hoops, right? It's a lot today. It's a lot. I looked at a few different ways. I tried to use more regular expressions, got complicated in a hurry. Again, I saw a couple solutions afterwards that used multiple loops, stuff like that. But this one feels pretty okay to me. And if we add, again, source of truth, right? If we add more to the map, everything still works, which is exactly what we want, right? We don't care about these today, but in the future we might. So having our code be super flexible and use that information at every step with keys and this the map and down here with the values, that makes sense to me. And I really enjoyed that part of this. This part in here, it's kind of a messy middle, right? I feel like it could be better. Maybe recursion, maybe. I haven't fully explored that, but plenty of options, right? Not every solution, just hopefully one good solution. So if you liked it, if you hated it, If you found a better way, if you found something that I missed, hit me up in those comments. Otherwise, today this has been Deepest Brackets, and I will see you tomorrow.